Can you? Hey guys, thank you for joining us. We'll just give it a few minutes while we have a few more attendees jump on. I always have a terrible habit of leaving way too many things open when I run a webinar. So I'm still closing things. I need to set another profile up and
As long as the phone's on silent.
yeah, I've already checked that.
Good tip.
We should play that that movie intro like in the cinemas. Please put your phone on silent.
Yes.
There we go.
Dedicated slide for it.
Yep.
Cool. Well, look, thank you for everyone for joining us today. This is our first session for MSPs in Conversation. We are joined by Aaron, Jim, and James. I'll let them introduce themselves in a second. But today is about operational maturity. We have over 150 partners, and we hear lots of different things from our community. We've implemented a lot of those in our own business. So today is about a very casual conversation, tips and tricks from some of our partners, and yeah. So Jim, James, and Aaron, feel free to jump in. Very casual today. Let me just move to the next slide. So Meryl, can you just, we've got a Uber Eats voucher. Can you just?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who've registered, you would have already received your Uber Eats voucher in your emails if you're a qualified MSP attendee. If we weren't able to reach you, because we did try to call, then we sent you an email. So if you haven't yet received that, just click me a message here on the Zoom, and we can shoot that off to you.
Cool. Thanking you. All right, so very quick overview of Hosted Network. So most of you will know who we are already, but if you don't, Hosted Network started as an MSP, which is kind of why we like doing these sort of pieces of content, because we remember what it's like. We've lived a lot of the pain points ourselves, and we love the community that we have. So quick overview of the services that we've got there. I won't deep dive into them or anything like that. But we are, in summary, an Australian only wholesale cloud and telco provider for MSPs. So without further ado, I will introduce the guys. So Aaron from Roden, we've got Jim from Atomic Bit, James from Teamwork Technology. There you go, James. I got it right for you.
Oh, for once.
For once. So starting with Aaron, if we can just do a very quick introduction of your businesses.
Yeah, sure. Roden Business Solutions, we're based in Wollongong. We across most of the country, primarily New South Wales. We have 26 full-time staff and about 4,000 managed endpoints. I've been with the company 19 years, and that's probably about it.
Cool. Thanks, Jim.
Okay. Yep. So Atomic Business IT is a small MSP, and our target market is small to medium business. So we have a very varied client base of a couple of hundred clients. We probably manage about 600 endpoints, 700 endpoints. They can range. Our clients range from one person to 200. So we cross many different verticals.
Cool, thank you. And James?
Yeah, well, we're a 12-man MSP. We have a couple of hundred clients managing around 12 to 1,300 endpoints. Specializing in dental. That's our forte. However, we've just slowly learned to realize that whilst we've got a big chunk of dental, we've got a lot of small to medium other businesses that are varied across many industries.
Great, cool. All right. Well, a bit of an overview of today's topic. So operational maturity. Now, many of you may have actually heard of this already, but we use this within our business, and it's been, I mean, I first heard of this from a channel consultant, and he drew it out on the back of a paper napkin in a coffee shop for me many years ago, and it's been a pivotal piece of our business. And we sort of drive this a little bit different to what we've got on the screen. So what we've got here is treat it like gamification. You know, if you're into your MMOs or your RPGs, you know, leveling up, right? And it's about sort of the things that you need to do to level up your business, whether it be an MSP or any business, right? Now, this is a very high level 1 to 5 approach. We do this a little bit more in depth internally at Hosted Network. This is really just to give you a very high level overview. We do this at a per department level, and we do it out of 10, so it's a little bit more fine grained, right? But the overall approach of operational maturity is that if, let's just say sales, right? Sales sell the dream, right? And if you're a one-man band, if you're a very small MSP, that you can control all of the moving parts. You can sell the dream, you can deliver the quality, the project goes to time, all of those bits and pieces. You can invoice, you can control all of the different facets of your business. As you grow, there's different things that you need to do to level up, right? So we look at that, I use the sales example. If sales sells the dream, but let's say your help desk drops the ball, if you've sold to the client, absolutely amazing, support offering, but all of a sudden, your support team is dropping it. So sales might be, say, a 10 out of 10, but your support team might only be a 2 out of 10, right? It's about looking at your business and leveling it up consistently across the board, because it doesn't even matter if it's, let's say, HR down there as a bigger MSP or a bigger business. If your HR or your finance is a 2 out of 10, it's dropping the ball. It's, it's pulling everyone down, right? So today is really about 2 key things that helps drive, in my opinion, that we at Hosted Network believe that drives operational maturity, and that is systems and people. So that's what we're sort of going to be covering today. So what I'm going to do is ditch the slide deck, because everyone gets, bored by death by PowerPoint. So, and just stick with the panelists. So first of all, Jim, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about how your business started.
So my business started as a side business. I used to work for a large corporate IT firm, global IT firm, where I learned a lot of lessons on how to grow and how to become more efficient. And started on the side, like we were talking about before, with a spreadsheet was my only tool. Then as the business grew and we started to bring on new clients, we had lots of referrals from our word of mouth and our current client base. I started to find that definitely you needed tools to continue to grow and not to drop the ball, like you were saying.
Cool. And James, do you mind sort of just running through how you and Teamwork Technology started?
Yeah, well, we originally started off as a cloud backup company. And very quickly I realized that my day job was paying the bills, and then I had a little bit of money left over at the end of every month that I could spend on fun stuff. And as this sort of grew, I realized very quickly that the only way I could make it grow faster was by coming up with a way to shovel customers into it. And that was to become an MSP, right? At the time, I was working for a car dealership chain in their IT department. I'd worked in managed services before, and up came an opportunity to actually work with someone who sold dental software. And very quickly, we got into bed and started a business together, right? I'm talking like within days.
As all good business decisions are done.
Yeah, it's always
in bed and very quickly.
Years. It's going to be the best idea ever, right? Now, after 2 years, we'd grown this. He was a great resource for bringing in customers, and I'll never deny that. But our relationship was nothing short of a toxic wasteland, right? There was a big ego in the room, and it was from both of us. And, you know, I wanted to go in an innovative direction. He wanted to stick on the safe direction of selling what he knew. However, as we've seen in the industry, things have changed, and you know, the products that we sold 10 years ago, you can't sell today with an active conscious because they're no longer best in class, right?
I'm sure you could sell Windows NT or Windows XP.
It works well.
That'd work, you know.
Less problems.
Yeah, but,
less problems. That's it.
But we went from literally overnight having one customer to 30 to 100, right? Over a short 2-year period. So, you know, in that period, we had to work fast and work hard and innovate and change. And it was quite scary.
Cool. Okay. And Aaron, I mean, you've been with Roden for 19 years, which seems like a lifetime. Which must feel like a lifetime.
Long time. Started when I was 19, been there for 19. So I do the math.
Cool. Give us the rundown then.
Yeah, so look, so we started, so obviously I've been there for a long time. It did start a few years before I got there, but we actually focused back then, so 2001 when I started, we were very much in the retail space. So, you know, think of your retail computer chain stores with a very small fraction of a little bit of corporate business stuff on the side. We picked up some things like HP printer contracts and HP repair agencies things over the years. And just naturally over the say the next 6 or 7 years, things started to shift away from retail into more of the business side of things. So it got to a point where we just dropped the retail side and then just focused on the business. So that was probably done 2007-ish, if I remember correctly, something like that, around that era. So I guess you could call, we were doing MSP stuff before it was really called MSP. I mean, that was early MSP days then, but yeah, it kind of really just scaled up from there. So I've kind of gone from, you know, ultimately 1-2-man band stuff, managing the business. I'm technical myself, so that I was involved in that, ran that department and absolutely scaled up from there. So I've kind of been through, I don't know, I'm not going to say everyone's growth problems, but I've definitely seen them. And I've been through those phases on, you know, when you try and stop doing things on the cheap, try to bring in tools, try to bring in this and that. And yeah, that absolutely felt all those growing pains and went to introduce management layers and all those types of things. So yeah.
Cool.
So,
okay. And I think kind of like what all three of you have said, that's, you know, everyone's got different pain points within their business that they're trying to tackle, right? And that's kind of what today's about. How do you move your business forward? You know, level up. Like I said, if you're, you know, I don't know, played World of Warcraft, how do you, whatever it was. Bit of a nerd analogy there.
I have no idea.
I was expecting someone. Maybe Luke got it. Anyway, I was a big World of Warcraft.
Sorry, Ben, you're on your own, mate.
Oh. That's all right. Hand on heart, mate. Hand on heart. Okay. So first sort of, I guess, question is, you know, and Aaron, I'll continue with you.
Sure.
When you guys were, you know, early days, did you leverage any community groups?
Early days, no, and I would regret that now. Absolutely. So we, like, I'm sure, like many of you on the call, probably think you know how to do it best. Everything's unique that you do. You know, I don't want to tell my secrets to people, things like that. So yeah, no, early days definitely not. Ben didn't leverage community groups. That was something that we probably did more so in the last 6 to 7 years, 6 years probably, something of that nature. So
okay. And Jim, how about yourself? Today, are you leveraging community groups?
So I'm pretty much the same as Aaron, to be honest. I do regret I didn't when I was starting the business, and I now see the value. You know, even with partners like you guys, I learn so much all the time, and I learn this from all these different partners and colleagues that I work with. So yeah, regretfully, I wish I'd done it from the start. And it wasn't really because I thought I knew better. It was, I just didn't know.
Yeah, and I can relate to that myself, is that, you know, up until, I don't know, 5 years ago, there's the community groups that didn't even know they sort of existed. You're dealing with your day-to-day mindset, right? All the problems that you've got day to day, and you're focusing on the next one, and, you know, James, what about yourself? Do you, did you and do you?
Well, only in the last couple of years have we really started to do, you know, the peer groups. Like, you know, we joined SMBIT years and years and years ago, and we didn't get much benefit out of it, especially in the Sydney chapter. I just, you know, it felt, you know, very alien to me, the group. There are a couple of really good guys in there, and you know what? Great community, but it just wasn't for me.
Okay, so if that wasn't, there's and I guess because we've got some of the chat at the moment, there's the different community groups of like BNI and your local chamber of commerce and things like that. So when I say community groups, I'm talking MSP focused community groups, right? So you know, these days there's SMBIT, Tech Tribe, Nigel Moore's group, but even, you know, the group on Reddit, right? If anyone, those of you that are into, you know, social media and whatnot, the MSP community in Reddit is huge. You know, the MSP groups even on Facebook, those sort of things. What about those guys? So James, do you sort of leverage those?
We'll play around a little bit with Reddit, you know, reading a lot of the stuff that happens in there. But mainly,
you're a lurker. That's okay.
I'm a lurker, yeah. But mainly, I find the most benefit comes from Nigel Moore's Tech Tribe. Yep. That is literally been hands down for us the best community that we've ever seen or done. And I'm not trying to spruik it for the sake of spruiking. I'm definitely not wearing a Tech Tribe t-shirt under this, but it's people with the same problems that we're having at any given time, because the MSPs that are in there are ranging from one-man bands all the way up to 50, 60 plus people. And I just hands down, it's been the best. Like before that, I always found that talking to other people in the industry direct was best. People like yourself, Ben. One person who comes to mind is Travis Moore from Gem Computers. You know, I always like talking to people that were larger than us, you know, because they've gone through these problems that we've had.
And we've got a great community in that sense, right? And that's one of the things that I personally love about the MSP community is that, you know, we hold events, and obviously we can't do these in person at the moment, hence why we're doing it via Zoom. But, you know, so many ideas get passed around the room and whatnot. So yeah, it's interesting in that sense. So you mentioned that Travis is a bit of, I'm going to use the word, you know, and knowing that they're a partner as well, but, you know, mentor, right? So if he's a bit of a mentor for you, what about Jim, Aaron, do you guys are there people in whether your lives or within your organization that have been mentors to help you sort of understand and know what to focus on next?
Yeah. Do you want to go, Jim? You go.
Yeah, not really, to be honest with you. Like I said, I haven't had much exposure, and I wish I had more. I really have only, you know, seen it through you guys, to be honest with you. We don't. Yeah, I'm still learning all the time. So I'd say I love the way you guys. I always see things. I always try to attend things that you guys do, because I always learn a lot. But no, nobody else specifically. And if I look at that other operational maturity scale, our business is sort of towards the bottom there. And when you're towards the bottom there, you just don't have time to even look at Reddit or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, it's, you know, I'm often browsing Facebook at the most, you know, the time that you have free on your phone. Let's just put it that way.
So I've got the big one I'll add, Ben, because I think it's really valuable. I'll go face to face first. So for me, attending conferences and things like that, I try to stay very much up to date on things that are going around and through own research and reading. So for me, attending vendor conferences and things like that, I don't personally get a lot out of the conference themselves, but it's the networking. The networking is where I get the biggest. And that's very much why, Ben, when you run, you know, you get-togethers, you guys are less focused on the topic or the tech at the time or whatever you're presenting. While there always has to be generally a topic, the networking itself is much better. We're a ConnectWise partner and have been for about 5-6 years now. And then they used to do those quarterly events, which was good. I didn't get anything out of ConnectWise event itself, and I'll be blatantly honest about that. But what I did get was talking to other partners, which is exactly what everyone's talking about. In terms of an online resource, though, MSP Geek, formerly LabTech Geek, has hands down been the best single resource for me. Depends on how you want to obviously obtain your knowledge and be involved in that. Facebook for me, I don't really enjoy Facebook groups. MSP Reddit, yes, there is some good stuff in there. There is also, I'll be blunt, a lot of dickheads in there. There's a lot of just I actually don't really enjoy Reddit and all the flaming and all the bullshit that goes on in there. So
Yeah.
while there is some good stuff in there, yeah, Tech Tribe, I personally haven't used. I really want to get into it because I hear some amazing things about it. I've never heard a bad word about it. But MSP Geek, both the forums and basically the Slack environment that they have, it's amazing. And it originally started off for ConnectWise Automate, which was LabTech back in the day, but it's now expanded over the last few years. So whether you're a Datto, RMM, or any of them, actually, they've got channels for everything in there. And there's some really cluey people in there. It's a really open community, sharing scripts, sharing knowledge, and the security focused channels. There's everything focused channel, to be honest. And when these big incidents hit, Kaseya, that's the most active spot. You have all of the vendors have their own channels in there. You've got the Huntress guys, Sophos, everyone has their own channel in there, and everyone's really, really active and really positive. So that's probably my biggest input there. And I don't have someone internally that I've learnt from. That's unfortunately been me in my position to do that to others. But yeah, if you are watching this and you're not sure where to go, definitely Tech Tribe I hear is amazing as a local one. But then MSP Geek would be my number one after that.
Yeah, cool. That's fantastic. Thank you, guys. All right, so maybe let's shift gears a little bit. So when you're a smaller MSP, you know, and I'm going to speak from personal experience, so maybe not everyone can relate to this, but I certainly undervalued, you know, the value of what we were doing, and I see that far too often in our industry, in the sense that the smaller MSPs, they're trying to grow, but they're charging way too low. Right. So, you know, and I'm going to say how much I charged when I first started. I used to charge $40 an hour when I was a one-man band back in the day. Right. And now I kind of cringe at that. Right. But there's a lot of fear behind, you know, trying to grow, trying to actually do rate rises, introduce new services and things like that. So how have you guys in the past tackled things like rate rises, you know, where it might have upset a client, things like that? James, can you give me an example of how you've mitigated that potential risk?
I am the worst person to ask this question, Ben.
Okay, well, shifting gears.
I'll tell you why. Because we set our rates, and like I said, when we first started, I had somebody who had a lot of experience with us, right? And basically, he set the rates, and they were industry standard. But I looked at them back then, they're too high. $160 exclusive of GST an hour for non-managed. And it was, you know, I'm going, wow, all right. But it's been lucky on the hourly rate part that, you know, we set that at what was fair, because that's allowed us to actually grow, right? We're not having to have those awful conversations of, oh, well, your hourly rates increased. The one drama that we have had is we've never actually increased our managed services rates to existing customers. Yes, we've increased them, right? So we've got customers that pay $25 a computer a month plus $10 a month for antivirus. But then we've got the other flip side of the coin where they pay $50 a month that includes the antivirus per computer. Now, I know that there are MSPs out there that are charging $90, right? But I also know that in the direct industry that we operate in as well, which is dental, we've got, you know, people down there doing 35 all day, every day, right? Which we now know as an MSP of our size is impossible to give quality, because by the time you include your license for your RMM, your antivirus, you know, you're left
even things like rent, right? You know, staff, all these bits and pieces.
Who needs staff? You got an RMM, it's all magical. You know, my point is that, you know, we're shoeboxed at the moment, because if we increase, we lose opportunities. And I'm not prepared to go down, all right? So it comes down to how do we sell our value at that $50 a computer a month mark, right?
Okay, so can I shift gears to Aaron there? So Aaron, you guys are a bit bigger, right? So how in the past have you, I'm going to say it bluntly, but kind of like weeded out the crap, right? The customers that may not have wanted to, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I was going to say to you, James, then, so there's a couple of things. I've got a couple of things there, but look, it's all about demonstrating value. If you're demonstrating that value, our experience is you can increase rates and people aren't necessarily going to walk. If you are that worried about them going to walk, they're probably not the right customer for you anyway.
Yeah.
And you need to get comfortable with customer churn. Something we do, you mentioned you've got some managed agreements out there that have never changed. We have written, and we've done this for 10 years, we've written an automatic 5% increase every year into our agreements. And that just rolls on up, and that's a 5% on the overall value. Now, I know you were talking about per computer pricing and things like that. We actually don't operate like that. We do for our calculations and stuff, but we work on a fixed price for the customer, and then there are some triggers that will trigger a re-quote, if you will. So new locations, expansions, big user change counts, and then we do reviews on that every year. But a big one for me that just sort of stood out to me when you were speaking was, you said you've got some customers that are quite low in the payment side, and then you've got other ones that are on different scales. For me, and this is something we've been working on pretty heavily over the last 2 years, and this, Ben, I think it would have been the second last of your slides, or I think it was the second one, where you're tuning or optimizing, I think it was, looking at what your hourly rate is to your clients if you're on your agreements. Now, you need some good data from your PSAs and things like that to identify that, but trying to understand the hourly rate that you're working at and those non-profitable versus profitable customers, and then pick your hourly rate and target towards it. Look at all your margins on clients that are below that, and try and figure out why those clients are in that space. Are they noisy? Is it that you need training, as in for them, not for necessarily you? Maybe there's ongoing problems that your help desk are just ticking over, and you're just fixing these things month after month, but realistically all it's doing is wearing you guys down. These are all the little things that you kind of need to do, especially when you get into that higher optimizing level, to try and fit your hourly rate.
And to be honest, one of the things that we are doing at the moment is we were going to go back and start increasing prices at the halfway through next year. We made the decision, end of financial year, send out an email. Unfortunately, the bat flu came through, and with
what's that? I haven't heard of it.
It's the reason why we have to wear a mask every time we want to go buy a Big Mac.
All right.
But, you know, that sort of affected that rate increase for us. But in the meantime, we've also signed up for a program called C-Level Operations, which the head of Australia here is James, who used to work at a company called Cool Chili. Really nice bloke, right? And he's been going, you know, as a part of this program, the first thing I do is crack open your PSA and go, have you got it configured? Have you, how are you running this? And we've literally just spent the last 6 months coming up with ticket types, all sorts of weird and wonderful things, so that we can actually dive down and get the data out of our PSA, so we can look at effective hourly rates.
So James,
definitely. What PSA do you use, James?
I'm going to pause you there. Sorry, Aaron. It's a good point that you sort of raised, and that sort of ties back to the topic today, right? About ticket types and things like that, because you're doing that reactively, right? You've hit a pain point, right? However, ideally in a perfect world, you want to be proactive about it. And that's sort of, I guess, the topic of today, in the sense of what are some of these things that you can do in the sense of, fast tracking that. So you're ahead of that curve, rather than being, oh shit, I've got a pain point now because I've got a fire. How do I tackle that ahead of time, knowing that I'm going to have that fire? Obviously easier said than done, right? So
yes and no, it depends on, well, when you implement your PSA, I guarantee you, James, when you put your PSA and you probably had all these options to set up your ticket types and subtypes and item level stuff, and you went, we'll do that later, right?
Yeah, it's not just that, it's like we drew the short straw. The guy who had to implement it with us from ConnectWise was the worst implementer ever.
It wasn't just the guy, it was all ConnectWise. So.
I was going to say, we need like the beeper every time when someone says ConnectWise, that the beeper goes off.
But look, absolutely. I mean, that, I guess, to touch on what you were saying there, Ben, it's everyone's going to want to cut corners and things like that. We took 9 months to put our managed implementation in and go live with it. That was 2 of us. We actually didn't use an implementer at all. We did it all internally, which I think we all quoted 30 or 40 grand or whatever they quote you. I guess my advice would be to really take on board the PSA of your choice and really use all the options, because while at the start you would choose and you think, I'm not going to need that, that pain point you're in now, and about not having types and things like that, you'll realize that later on, and it's really, really important to get that data, because you've mentioned someone's coming in to look at it now. For anyone that's using ConnectWise Manage on the line, I can give a plug to Ignition 360 in terms of data analytics and reporting.
That's our next step.
Yep, yeah, for sure. So they'll do the same thing, James, for you. They'll take a look at your data and say, right, and they'll look at maturity and how it's not focusing on how it's configured, because they'll just suck their reports out and say, right, apparently you got 3% optimization, and why do we have that? Start looking and realize you don't have half the platform filled out. So I guess on ConnectWise
too, right?
Yeah, 100%. Garbage in, garbage out is important.
And
So
the only way we realized was we started sucking reports out of ConnectWise, and we're like, this is freaking useless.
yeah,
right?
well, their reports are useless. So, but it really is important. You need, as you guys grow, and maybe for yourself, Jim, I don't know what PSA and things you're using, but look, I think ConnectWise have a saying. I'm kind of remembering this from my university days. For anyone that knows what I'm talking about,
going again.
Yeah, like they say, on time, all time, every time, in terms of your time entry. I think that is critical, and we were very strict on that from the start, and always have been. That's been hugely beneficial to us. That comes back onto your people, because if they're not doing it, and then you try to force your techs to start doing something down the track, you've got to shift. Then you've got to pry everyone out of their ways, and then you've got other problems to deal with. So yeah, like, I mean, James, you'll go through and put types and subtypes and things in, but then you've got to actually get your staff using them and forcing them to use them, and actually picking the right ones. I mean, we just did a review of this, myself and my operations manager, just last week, and we realized that one of our types, which we went on a very strict ITIL approach, but one of our types has become a bit of a dumping ground, and that's because of 365 and new services. So a lot of Power BI, a lot of this SharePoint, whatever. So you need to evolve those over time as well, and definitely review them. But types and subtypes are a great thing. I was able to pull reports 2 weeks after COVID hit last March and say, this is how many hours we spent on configuring remote access. And we actually blasted that out to our client base and showed value. We showed that we spent 3 full-time techs for 2.5 weeks or whatever it was, just doing remote access tickets for them, and trying to show the value. And this is where you really need a managed service provider, and how much value everyone's getting out of their fixed price agreements at that point. So
there's nothing worse than just getting an invoice once a month, right?
No, you got to show value.
And what are you doing?
Show value,
it's good in the way that they not hearing from you, you're looking after everything, then yeah, sure. But if you're not showing that value, we're gonna, you're gonna get into trouble, right? They're gonna start questioning things. I'm gonna follow the train of thought that you've just started there, Aaron. So a question to Jim. Jim, I mean, you come from the enterprise world, right? I think, was it IBM? Yep. So ITIL, right? So ITIL is often, and I see it, some MSPs like require it on their CVs, others don't care. How do you feel about ITIL in your organization?
I think it's definitely the greatest and very beneficial. At IBM, it was the first piece of training that I had every new staff member joining our team, which was a server engineering team, complete. And to be honest with you, I've built Atomic all along that ITIL, on that basis.
Framework, yep.
On that framework. So yeah, and even to this day, new staff that we have at Atomic, we also take them through that training, and all our PSAs and all our tools we're starting to implement. So we're sort of at the stage, just going back one step as well, we're starting to implement a lot of these things and tools, and it's hard because we're like, our clients are smaller, on the small to medium scale, so you can't just go out there and deploy like Autotask, or it's just not worth it. We've done it in the past and then we've gone off it.
Were you one of those ones that swallowed the what is it, the red pill, and you
Yes,
paid the $40,000 setup fee? Yeah. There is a company. I'm just gonna, I can't quite remember. I thought it was at the 361, but I do hear that quite often, that getting the actual PSA companies to set them up is a waste of time and money.
Total waste of time.
And there are a few organizations, and I can't remember it.
Sierra Pacific is one.
Yeah, and I felt like the something to do with Ninja something or other. But they're basically, all they do, they don't sell the PSA, they just set it up, right?
Yeah,
and
they're
they are
just
dramatically
Yep.
dramatically cheaper. And there's a few, I've seen it in a few of the communities, but food for
100%.
thought for people that are looking at, if you're not quite at the PSA, don't necessarily any of these big vendors, they put their tax on it, right? And they're going to charge you through the arse for it. And I've seen it time and time again. Even when we had it was a Autotask and Enable we used back when we were running our MSP,
Yep.
and we paid for it as well. And we were a small MSP, and we financed it, at the time, right? And there was this, I think we spent about 50 grand on getting their professional services to do the deployment, and it was, I think it was IBM Finance at the time, and it just sort of sat there for years and years and years. And in the end, we actually got rid of Enable while we were still paying for it. So it was kind of like,
wow.
Not
the first person I've heard of doing that though. So
no, and it is, and that's why I sort of raise it in the sense of those bits and pieces. All right,
look, 100% on that. Just to add that, consultants, absolutely. I mentioned MSP Geek earlier. There's plenty of consultants, generally from America, but there's some around that hang in there. Michael Priest, which you guys may know from SMB IT, and he hangs around in there. He can do some stuff for Automate. I think he's consulting for Automate. I probably shouldn't plug his name without knowing that for sure. But even if anyone wants to reach out to me, I've been there, I've done it. But 100% don't pay the vendors. And when the vendors tell you there's a minimum 20 hours that you have to pay for to buy the product, tell them to go fuck themselves, because there's not. Actually, I can tell you from experience.
Aaron, look, I've got something to add there. So I've got a second business up in Queensland, and we just, after using a Terra for the first year of business while we got the thing off the ground, we've just cut over to ConnectWise. And we actually had a really good ConnectWise implementer, Jason. I think he's based in Australia. And we pumped it out in about a month and a half. With a lot of, and he was fantastic.
Yeah,
right?
That's good.
But
that's good.
I think 90% of what made it so easy was, number one, I had Kirsty. So for those of you who don't know, Kirsty is like, teamwork operations manager. She runs the joint. I just show up and do what she says. But she really drove that implementation home. And we were using a lot of the principles that we took from Teamwork and my business partner's company down in Melbourne, Urban, to come up with a really nice Swish ConnectWise implementation. So as long as you know what the hell you're doing, the 20 hours that ConnectWise gives you can be beneficial. But if you've just signed a ConnectWise contract, it's useless, right?
You've already signed it. Too late.
It's useless.
But food for thought if you're thinking about it. Right. If you're thinking about it, make sure that you understand that you've got room to negotiate with those PSA vendors.
Yeah.
Let's move on from PSA a little bit, right? Let's talk, I said before in terms of, big things that move operational maturity forward are systems and people, right? Let's stay on the systems topic, but let's talk documentation, right? Bane of a lot of MSPs, and the amount of times we've reinvented our own approach to documentation, I'm ashamed of. We've used all sorts of things. We've used Word documents. We've used, for a long time, we use Confluence. And I think even within Confluence, we've reinvented that about 4 times. All sorts of things. It's a nightmare. When you're a one-man band, it really doesn't matter as much, right? You keep everything up here. Yeah, maybe take a few notes.
No, that's wrong. It does matter.
Of course it does. Of course it does. But it becomes
you go from 1 to 2 eventually.
Well, that's it. Yes, of course. But the more the further you go along, the more and more it becomes important. So what are, I guess, Jim, you're, a younger MSP. What are some of the early lessons that you've tackled, that in terms of documentation to move your internal approach forward?
Yep. So look, I've definitely started to feel the pain as we started to get new staff members joining, because you just need to. They're constantly taking your time. For
how do I do this?
How do I do this?
Yep. Where's the password for this?
Correct. That's right. And I probably reinvented it from Word documents to OneNote and made SharePoint things and blah blah blah, and now we have just deployed and implemented IT Glue, which
everyone's. I'm just going to say everyone's going to have a different opinion. That's okay.
I love Aaron's facial as well.
So I trust me. I pay for IT Glue as well. I use it, and that's what I just did. And you know why? I'm the guy running the petition against Nadir, the CTO and general manager of IT Glue right now, that has over 200 signatures for people to take their feature requests seriously. Plus, they're owned by Kaseya, so just anyway.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Hoodoo.
But
If you were
okay.
going to move one now, Hoodoo. But
Well, and I've heard the two of those in, and we have historically used IT Glue as well, but I mean, even for us, that moved that operational maturity component forward dramatically.
Yes,
So there's a lot of MSPs, and that's what this is about, right? And I guess within that concept of operational maturity, let's say you're a 5 out of 10 for a particular piece, right? It doesn't mean that system is going to stay forever. Right. In order to go to a 7 or 8, it might be something else, right? Your requirements are going to change over time, and you need to accept that. It's just part of business. It's a pain in the ass, but you just deal with it. So, for someone, okay, so there's a few other, there you go, Aaron. Okay, cool. We'll share that afterwards. I'm reading the chat, and it's Aaron, and he's vendetta against IT Glue.
Yeah. But I'm still paying them.
And that's where I'm sort of going in the sense of, okay, for someone that doesn't have something like, whether it's, let's focus not on brands and maybe on the approach, why is a system like that better than, say, Word documents?
Can I take that?
Please.
Okay, you need to make documentation simple. It has to be simple. It has to be fast for your techs, or they won't do it. That's pretty much the summary I can give you. If it's in your head, get it out of your head. Leave the example. IT Glue and Hoodoo and those types of platforms now. Don't use IT Boost, I think, from ConnectWise, but those platforms, they gear it up for an MSP, whereas you've got those other ones, Ben, you mentioned, your Confluence and SharePoint, Word, whatever.
We're not an MSP anymore. So
yeah, that's right.
That's right. Different, right?
They're scaled and targeted differently. You need something, I think, aimed at an MSP. And look, as much as I hate IT Glue, I'll probably renew my subscription because I couldn't be bothered moving away from it, because it's such a job, right? I think it's actually probably easier to move PSA and RMM than it is to move your documentation, unless they have a seamless migration tool, but they don't. And there's still a few spanners with that, even though I just posted a script to do it. So so it's really critical that you have it. It needs to be nice and easy. You definitely need to lead the way. If you're sort of in charge of this at your own MSP, or you're a smaller 1 or 2 man person, you need to be the one demonstrating how to do it. So lead by example, not do what I say, not as I do type approach with documentation. Do it, build it out, because when they see it working well, and these platforms link things up well and make it very easy to visualize and search, if your technicians come on board and see a good working documentation platform, they're going to want to join in and do that. If it's a mess when they get there, they're just going to get frustrated, and they're just going to
they keep making it a mess, right? They don't
care. Like, it's not like you walk into a nice tidy room and you don't want to mess it up. If it's just a mess, then you don't care, right? So same kind of approach. So I would absolutely focus on that. We did IT Glue probably 7-8 years ago, and yeah, it's been critical to everything we do. So.
And okay, so we've got a question here. Does anyone, and does anyone have any recommendations on a good IT Glue implementation consultant?
I would argue you don't need one, personally.
I'd agree.
Yeah, that's the point of those platforms. They're built ready to go. So.
Okay. And James, when you were smaller, what was your transition path? You're using IT Glue now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you use before that?
So we used OneNote, right? And I always worried about having my passwords for all my clients up in the cloud. Like, it's the perfect example for an Aladdin's cave attack.
It's like a spreadsheet labeled passwords, right?
Oh, that's 100% safe, right? But shortly after we implemented IT Glue, we came in one day, right? And we're trying to access our passwords, and you click it and it just comes up with a hash. For about half a day, we operated our business without knowing what our clients' passwords were, while IT Glue went out and figured out what was actually wrong in the back end so that they could recover our passwords.
And that's a risk of any outsourcing any system, right?
100%.
I mean, you could run everything off, spreadsheets and Word docs, but I guess the risk versus the reward of having a system like that,
I feel that there needs to be some sort of, I know they have an export function, but do you need to build it into your business where you download a copy of all your customers' passwords once a month?
We actually do that, James. Yeah, just in case. Yeah.
Well, I know that some MSPs actually
easy.
sort of, they have to, in their agreements, they have to actually provide, those sort of details on a regular basis, right? So it's depending on the agreement.
I'll just post in the chat for anyone. Cyberdrain, Kelvin, he's an MVP. He built an unofficial IT glue backup script, which I've just posted for anyone.
Aaron, you need to post that to the audience. You're posting that to us.
Oh, all that stuff I'm posting. There we go. I don't like Zoom, everyone. There you go. So there we go. So all this stuff I've just been rambling on has just been to you lot. So there we go.
All right. Cool. Okay. So if there's a quick one tip from each of you, and it might be the same one, to improve documentation, what would it be?
If you don't do it, you're fired.
Extreme, but sure. Okay.
One tip.
Yeah, look.
Other than do it.
Yeah, you need to get it together so you can quickly respond. Do you mean?
Yeah, you can't scale without it. Is if it's in your head, it's not okay.
And I've seen it time and time again. Even so the MSP that we used to run, I didn't start it, and my business partner at the time, it took a while to get it all out of his head, into the actual tech's hands, and that's quite common, and it's you're wasting your own money, right? If it's in your head, your techs aren't doing their job, they're going to ask you. It's costing more and more.
And I think
actually, sorry, I was going to say, in your projects, when you guys are doing projects for clients, bake time in to your project to do documentation.
Build the client.
We build the client. Like, absolutely. If it's in their best interest that it's documented, because even if you walk, I mean, IT Glue, it's very simple to do an offboarding with IT Glue, just export it, hand it over, or migrate it to their IT Glue. But yeah, we charge, depending on the size of the project, 2, 4, 6 hours to do documentation. And that involves building the network diagrams, documenting it, making sure it's all done. So yeah, that would be my advice. Charge the customer to do it and do it well.
And I think you hit right on the head before, Aaron, when you said lead by example. Because 9 times out of 10, if the help desk manager or the owner normally isn't documenting, it doesn't encourage others to. And I've always seen that as a success. The second that the owner gets into it, it just flows.
It's a top down, absolutely. That definitely is a top down one.
Well, let's shift into that in terms of the people approach, right? And we'll shift between documentation and, Aaron, you and I have talked about this before, timesheets and internal ticket notes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's, in my experience, I back in the day, I had an absolute nightmare of getting people to consistently either log time, but at the same time, occasionally, far too often, we weren't reviewing the timesheets. We were too busy as a smaller MSP fighting fires, right? And so we come back, and unfortunately, we had one tech that didn't log time for basically a month, several times. Learn from your prior mistakes, right? Hence the reason for these sort of webinars. What is some of the ways that you encourage your techs to log their time, if you require them to log time, because not all MSPs do, but at the very least, do internal ticket notes, because internal ticket notes in my mind are fundamental, right? Someone's off sick, there's no notes, well, you're effed. You have to start again. James, what are some of the things that Teamwork Technology do to encourage that?
So basically, we had to become really tough with it. And, we hired a really capable SDM, not as an SDM. He was a team leader at Queensland University somewhere. And then he came to us as a tech, and SDM left, he took over that role. But, with that, we implemented several processes where our techs can't close tickets, right? We don't want them to close tickets. Right. And as a part of the SDM's role, it's his role to go through and go, okay, yep, you did this, and then close
quality
it, right?
control.
Yeah, but it also, you might have Andrew looked at this ticket on a Monday, a printing issue for this client. Alex might have looked at it on a Tuesday. Sam might have looked at it on a Wednesday, and they all think it's the first time that the issue's been fixed, and they're fixing it for good, but it's happened 3 days in a row. By having one central closing point, it makes sure that there's quality control on the ticket closure. What's being done has actually closed it. If it's still a recurring issue, then the SDM can go, wait, you've all done the same thing and it's come back, escalate back to a senior, and it gets resolved. We go back and fix it properly. It's important, but it also means that, It's keeping our guys honest, because at the same time he's looking, have they done their 8 hours? Yep. Have they done a substantial amount of work for that 8 hours? And it's happening every day.
All right, so that's a good example if you can afford to hire a dedicated service desk manager, right? But some MSPs just aren't there yet. So, Jim, do you have a service desk manager at the moment, or is it yourself?
No, it's myself. Yep. So I can tell you exactly what we do.
Perfect.
So, firstly, we use Freshdesk, which we've recently implemented as well. We came from Zoho, and I'm loving Freshdesk. I'll just tell you that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, from our employees' perspective and all our techs, straight off the bat, I drill it. They have to log information in tickets, and they must put time spent in the tickets. And I pull that out each month. I see every ticket that's closed. So if I don't see the right amount of hours, I correct them, and I'll go back to the employee, and I review it every month for billing. And make adjustments as required, and re-educate the employees that have done it wrong if need be. And I'm loving IT Glue checklists. So I'm now making our employees, when I'm seeing new user onboards for different companies, I need a link to Glue checklist with each thing ticked off. I mean, no missing pieces, no complaints. Okay. Yeah. So
and Aaron, what about you? Aaron's actually given me advice for that particular staff member that I previously spoke about. So yeah.
We take a bit of a different approach, and I mean, we've been doing time so long. I don't know, I almost forget how I implemented initially, and I'm sure I had issues then at the time. But we've taken an approach. Sure, we have an operations manager and SDM, but they don't sit there and close every ticket. So we take a different approach. That responsibility goes onto the people, and we almost sort of crowdsource it, so to speak. We have reports. We have everything's full visibility, so we're not hiding that away in a report for a manager to see. We have TVs. We have reports that go out. Everyone has their own dashboards. We use Brightgauge for this, and everyone sees their time. They have to enter a certain amount of time every day. Literally, each team has everyone on a little scorecard, and it shows nice green, yellow, red if they haven't entered their time. They get warnings in an email every day. So it's all the way down to the daily. Then there's a weekly report that goes to the team leader and manager, and they see, and if straight away, it's very clear, bang, sits in your email, this person hasn't logged enough time that week, but equally everyone sees that daily as well. So we've got a good culture where if there's someone not entering time, that means they're not working. And that'll be highlighted very, very quickly and dealt with properly as a coaching type thing. In terms of ticket notes, Ben, yeah, look, that one's definitely a cultural problem. You have to bring it up. Ticket escalations, we did have a little lull recently where for some reason a certain team just decided to, they'll just escalate tickets to a different department and not bother writing anything. And I don't know why it happened, but we just had to coach it through it, and it just becomes part of the environment. So yeah, ticket notes are really, really important, but then just visibility, just getting it out there, making it, like you mentioned, gamifying things, Ben, just making it like that, making it a game, making scorecards and leaderboards and things like that. So if someone's slipping, straight away that's picked up. We measure things like phone call reports per week and things like that. And straight away, like I had a particular technician this week where we noticed he only took 4 calls last week, and the other team around him were all taking 20 or 30. Looked at the amount of times that his phone was polled, and it was 6. So he's clearly just left his phone on Do Not Disturb while working from home. And he's worked on tickets. He's still working. He's just not doing his part on the phone. So yeah, like it's all about reporting and data. Always comes back to it.
So it sounds like you and James, and to a degree Jim, you've all taken a slightly different approach. James's approach is kind of similar to Jim's. I mean, he's handballed it over to someone else, as a dedicated role. But Aaron, you've actually automated it.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it scalable.
Systems.
Yeah, I don't think one single person closing 500 tickets a week is scalable. So we've tried to get off that. We've also given technicians and team leaders little buttons inside Manage, custom fields that say this ticket needs a review. So they call each other out. If they see terrible notes, they can click the button that ticks a review, and then the operations manager at the end of the week gets those tickets and then can call people out on it. So we've absolutely peered it around and yes, automated it in reporting. So.
Okay. Interesting. I actually saw that that question on one of the Facebook groups the other day, and I was and my piece of it was, you lead by example. You always, you train, you pick it up. If they don't, and you kind of call it out publicly, if that's the case in team meetings, things like that. Not to shame them, but to, hey, if you see it, bring it up, like what your buttons are for, right?
Yeah.
Whether
Communication.
it's
Communication is important on people. Like we had this discussion. We had our annual planning meeting the other day, and we reviewed the odd issues that we've had over the past year, and they always come down to communication and escalation. And that's communication internally amongst the team or to the customer. If your communication's good, it kind of doesn't really matter what's going wrong. If you're using Teams or Slack or whatever, if you've got a big problem and you communicate it to your company, everyone's going to jump in and help. It's just it's how you drive culture. So, but if someone sits there and tries and buries, 17 hours into a help desk ticket and doesn't communicate that to anyone, that's when you're going to have problems.
Well, yeah, you see time entry of, they just spent an entire day on something with 4 bullet points what they did. That's kind of like, and then if you're billing your customer with those notes, your customer sees it and goes, WTF, right?
Well, worse, if you're not billing them. That's actually worse if you're not billing them.
Well, no time entry is even worse, right?
Or just they do time entry, but that's on you because it's a fixed agreement, right? That's worse. That's negative view. At least if you're billing the customer, you can argue and try and bill some of it. So
Yep. Fair. So one of my next pieces is to actually talk about communication and culture of that that approach, right? So over the years, at Host Network, we are really big on culture in general. I call us a little bit crazy, but not culture in the sense of that we've got pinball machines or that we've got, whatever, those sort of things. We try and drive a culture of, going above and beyond, pushing each other, but also helping each other out. But that's difficult to do if you don't have the right people on the bus in the right seats. I love that saying. Right, because what happens if you have brought someone on, and at what point do you go, okay, enough's enough, right? Who wants to take that one? Silence. It's a bit of a tough topic, right?
I'll take it, but I probably should let someone else take it.
James?
So.
I'll let Jim take it.
All right, wow, James has got nothing to say.
Handball. It's a tough topic, and that's why.
Guys.
I reckon that's what James does when he has a staff problem. I'll let him down with that.
Actually, you know what? That's exactly what I do. Like, one of my strengths is not firing people or pulling them into line. So I hire really hard people to do that. I took that one off a friend, Travis Moore from Gem Computers. He's got this assassin. His name is Matthew Smart. He's probably watching at the moment. If you end up in an office with Matthew, you'll...
Yeah, no worries. I'm happy to take that one. I'm happy.
Yeah, I could add something to it as well.
So basically, from day one, I, as a smaller MSP and a small business that I've grown myself, every customer and my client, we have a very close relationship, and our employees are, reflecting Atomic, and if they're not doing it right, they get spoken to very quickly. And
is there a point though? And I'm actually going to ask Meryl to unmute herself. And Meryl gave this piece of feedback to me. She came back from a partner meeting. Like I said, we've driven a lot of change. Meryl, do you remember what you said to me? You came back from a partner meeting.
You always like to bring this up, but I
do.
I think we were just talking about cutting out the cancer. Cutting out the cancer,
Yes.
Cutting out the cancer.
Bad
right?
seed.
Really,
bad
it's
seed.
Bad seeds. And that's kind of when I say like culture, right? And hand on heart, like these are some of the lessons that we've learned. And I remember I had a partner once actually call up and say, I hang up every time I get this guy.
Yeah.
Right, but he only told us after we'd realized it was too late, right? And I know that's, and hand on heart, we had to learn hard lessons there. That's not something I want to hear, and it hurts to hear that, you put a lot of effort in, but this particular guy, I believed in, no, he can do that. He was a university, grad. He was, scored really well and he could do a great job. But there came a time. How long do you wait? How far do you push it out?
Not too far is the answer, but it's look, there's different ways to tackle this. There's different methodologies. If you are in that management leadership role, I would say go and get training around it. We implemented something called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, 2 and a bit years ago. It's by far the best thing we've ever done. It's not for this particular topic, but
we actually have an upcoming session on EOS.
Really?
Yes, and I think and we've got an EOS implementer, Dan, who's going to be attending that.
Oh, you got Dan. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yep.
So we don't use Dan, we use someone else, but it's an amazing system. And something that they do on this very topic is they GWC your employees, and that means, do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have capacity to do it? So it's a bit like a 2 out of 3 means you got to fire them. So or have a conversation with them and try and turn it around if you want. That's your call. But get it means, do they fully get the seat that they're in? Do they understand the role? Secondly, do they want it is pretty obvious. Do they actually want to do that job, or are they just there and they want to do something else? And capacity means a couple of things. Are you giving them capacity in time? Are you creating the space for them to do that role, or are you overworking them? But equally, do they have the technical and mental capacity to do that role? If it's 2 out of 3 of those are a no, then it's not automatic. Just go and walk up and tell them to leave. But that's a sign that you have a major issue. If it's 1 cross, it's still a problem that you've got to bring up. So.
Yeah, I think we've likened it internally to going in the same direction.
Yep.
Looking at all the different staff, and if they're all kind of going in different directions, there's no way that you can grow or move forward properly.
Correct. Yeah.
And I've seen that before ourselves, right? We had a team member who was quite toxic in our organisation a couple of years ago, and for that one person, he was in quite a senior role within the business, and he wanted a pay rise. He wanted a Mercedes, and I was like, oh, no. Why would I buy somebody a Mercedes? You don't go on site. There's no need for you to have a company car. And as a result, they went around and they convinced half the team to quit because we're going broke. Apparently.
Yeah, well, see, that's a bad seed. I've had one of them. He lasted 6 days.
You're smart. You just
that was my record.
Right?
And look, what was our guy's name? I think it was Tim.
Yes, he lasted.
Don't say names.
One
I didn't say any other name. But everyone, my point is everyone's got a story. Right?
Everyone's got a story. Yeah, everyone's got a story, and look, you really need to do it. But absolutely, don't leave a bad seed there. It will spread, and equally, you might be able to find them a different role if you're big enough and you have those opportunities. But the other thing we've found, just I guess on performance management, and Ben, that's really what you asked, like how long do you leave it? We've sort of come up with a process for that now, and before it gets to a formal sort of performance management, if you give the employee who's struggling some time in your week, so once a week, maybe you give them 15 minutes, or if it's really bad, you give them 15 minutes a day. And that's just to check in, how they're going, what are they working on? Okay, I've seen these things come up that you've done wrong in the last 24 hours. If you leave it for a month, it's too long. If you leave it for a week in certain scenarios, it's too long, because they just get frustrated when you bring these examples up. Since we've kind of taken this performance management approach and really refined it, it's amazing how many people we've pulled out of what we thought were gone and brought them back to really good employees. And again, it comes back to that thing I said, communication. If you are very open and honest and not a dick about how you're telling them they're not doing the right way, it's amazing how, like, you quickly see it. If they're just not into it, okay, well, then they shouldn't be with you. But if they're open and say, like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even realize I was doing that, and they're genuine, you can bring these people back. And then we have it on a strict 12-week thing now. And, after that 12 weeks, there's meetings all the way through. There's meetings every week, but then there's like monthly reviews across that 3 months. There's 3 of them. And, you kind of know by month 1 or 2 what you're going to do at the end of that. So
I hate it when they go, yep. It just means that they've given up in whatever.
Well, yeah, they have. If they've given up, then just give them up. Yeah, that's fine. It's not worth wasting time on those people. But
sometimes it's just worthwhile having a direct conversation with them. Do you want to be here? Do you want to, and it's pretty
be honest
rare.
To yourself too, though, Ben. You got to be honest to yourself and check if you're doing the right thing. Sometimes it's easy to realize that the issue's yourself, or sorry, to miss that the issue's yourself or your team or maybe the person responsible for this. If you've got layers of management, maybe that person. Maybe it's your manager that's telling you, yep, I've done that, and it turns out they haven't done it, or they
managing people is a fine art.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a great blog series. They do a podcast, and it's actually a HR app that we use internally called Fellow. Highly recommend that you check it out. It sends out a whole bunch of HR things about manager and leadership fantastic. Our leadership internally have to read a whole bunch of it and whatnot, and it's fantastic. One-on-ones is probably one of the things that I'd throw out there.
Yes, exactly.
We do one-on-ones weekly or fortnightly, depending on the role, with every single team member in our company.
Yep.
Right. And it's identify issues, coach. And it's not about, oh, hey, you're working on this. It's about career problems, what's happening in their life. You know, have they been up all week because they've just got a new baby and they just haven't told anyone, you know, different things like that. So, you know, you can open up that communication, like Aaron said. Well, look, we're at 2:00. Right. So I want to sort of we're going to have to wrap up a little bit, but I want to sort of end on one more positive question rather than firing people. More of how do you find good technicians? I'm not worried about sales or marketing or anything like that. Let's just focus on the tech, right? Because that's usually one of the first roles that people hire. And it's one of the repeating roles that we're always hiring for, right? You grow, you need more technical people. How do you find them?
Well, first thing I do is I ring up the rodent help desk and I start offering them jobs. If that doesn't work, I ring Jim's help desk and tell them, great technicians, right? Well, they were great because now they're hitting no.
So that's where he went. Got it.
Yeah, honestly, this is it's always word of mouth, right? And all the good ones are usually employed somewhere where they're either unhappy, not growing, whatever. One of our customers, they sell seafood, right? And how they find their staff, their really good ones, is they drive through Macca's drive-thrus, right? And they find the really friendly ones.
We've done that before.
Maybe I'm driving.
No, I know, but yeah.
That is the perfect example.
You guys on Sundays.
Kirsty's even offered the HP repair tech because she thought he had a great personality, a job when he was here once.
So sometimes you got to take a leap of faith.
Well, that's it. People fall into your life, and when you see them, you just got to grab it. And if it happens, it happens. If not, it wasn't meant to be. You know, we tried to get somebody that we'd worked with years ago to join us, and they agreed to join us. But then they went back to resign from where they were, and they got converted back to stay, right? And it just goes to show that, you know, when
they're probably more money driven in that sense.
That's right. That means they're money driven.
So you're always going to be playing that game.
Yeah.
But it's also, do you go with what's comfortable sometimes? And when you've got a family, right, are you better off staying where you are? You know, bird in the hand is better than two in the bush, right?
I would say, Ben, promote from within if you can. That's a big thing I try to do. So always trying to bring people up through the ranks. I find that builds loyalty.
I've seen that's worked very well for Rodent over the years. I mean, dealing with your junior guys and now they're your senior guys.
Yeah, it builds loyalty, and I feel like they just get it. They understand your business better than trying to bring someone in. I've had over the years, I've definitely had some bad scenarios and they're all on me. I brought this person in. Oh, he talked it up. This is going to be awesome. And it turns out they were just really good at talking shit. Like James, but no, I'm joking, James. I wanted to see that. But
wow, mic drop.
But look, always. But for me, in terms of when going external, Seek, believe it or not, is where I get texts from, and it's where we get good texts from. I don't find them on LinkedIn. I don't find them. Probably my best hire is a guy I met out on the piss, because I think that's where you find people's true colors, and I bonded with this guy and then ultimately gave him a job. So, look, for me, salespeople are different. I don't find good salespeople.
Let's avoid that topic. That's a dark eye right there.
People in sales, hey Luke.
So interestingly, Luke actually started in sales.
Look at Luke's
even he hated it. So
I'm just sitting here.
Do you have any sort of, I guess, tips about, finding, because you've been going on a bit of a recruitment drive recently, right? So how have you been sort of finding techs? And you don't have to go, if you're not comfortable giving up your, top secret recipe, that's fine.
Who was that? Me?
Jim.
Oh, sorry, mate. I didn't know who you were talking to.
Yeah, neither did I. I missed it as well.
Yeah. So,
humbling.
Again, as a small MSP, we don't have budgets and money to go and get really good techs. I'd love to, but unfortunately, we don't have the money. So I've taken, Ben, I spoke to you a long time ago, and you said what you guys have been successful with has been getting guys in that have fundamental IT skills and building them up and training them. And so far it's proven to be right, mate, to be honest. They've been loyal, they've learned a lot, they work really hard for the business, so it's worked really well.
Yeah, and that's a fun. Sorry, Jim, keep going.
And then when we need specialized skills, I talk to colleagues and find good skill that I can contract.
Yeah, okay, and that's sort of a you know, and for us internally at Hosted, we've like Aaron said, we started off a lot of our text finding it at Seek and whatnot as well, and you know, Whirlpool was actually, and not so much these days, but yeah, I got some great text back in the day. Yeah, in the job section on there. But I mean, if it, you know, James, you mentioned McDonald's, you know, and many of you will know Dylan Frankie, who's our partner support manager. Dylan was a night shift worker straight out of TAFE. You know, took him in as a level 1, took him under my wing, and now he knows well and truly more than I know. But you know, and it takes time, right? And you know, I just sort of, you know, what's that saying, Luke? Hire slow, fire fast.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah, like
you have a few.
But yeah, so any final words in terms of that?
Oh, look,
Finding
you know what?
Stuff.
Just
secret sauce.
Secret sauce. Basically, it's just eggs shaken up and left in the sun for a couple of hours. No secret sauce. It's just hard work. Look at the helicopter view in business, right? Don't get too drowned working in the business. Work on the business.
All right, fair. We got a question here, and Ray, you were in our webinar the other day, and I got told off afterwards for not reading the question out and only answering it. So, firstly, I'd like to apologise to you for that. But the question is, how do you manage response time and target resolution times as well? E.g., when a major event hits, such as Kaseya ransomware, you know, how do you prioritise that versus, you know, day to day? Jim, I hope that's what you're actually asking for. Ray, sorry, too many names going on. Guys, who wants to take that one?
So I know how we do it, but we've got probably more resources than others, but it's all about incident management. So security is a little bit different, but if there's a major outage, we assign one person to own that, so it doesn't impact the rest of the help desk. That person owns that incident. That people, all of the tickets, all of the noise gets flooded through to that person, and they deal with the response and the, you know, the updating the status pages or emails or however you're managing your incident. Kaseya, or that type of thing. We've had Print Nightmare, Hive Nightmare, Kaseya, you name it lately. From a security, yeah, it's the same thing. Someone else owns the security hat. They're responsible for updating, you know, any communication. I've mentioned communication a lot. It's important. So we use Teams. We have an incidents channel. Bang, it goes in there. That thread is continually updated on what's going on. That person is responsible for the internal testing and everything that needs to be done. If it's the type of thing where we need to emergency put out a patch or, you know, registry keys or whatever, we then that person still owns it, but they might, you know, we've got an automation person internally, and that's their role. So they'll build out that stuff and push it out. So so I know our processes, but we probably do have a little bit more.
Look, I'm actually going to I'm going to ask you this one as well, because I've told you should write a book about this a few times. So what's the approach? And for those of you that don't know, Luke is our operations manager, so he's all about our internal processes and things like that. So how did you tackle that within Hosted Network?
So what we implemented across several departments was what we call run sheets, or a run book, a playbook. It's generally been taken from other industries, but I was surprised when I communicated this in a couple of MSP groups, how much people in the industry just don't use them. And what they basically are is, look at what you're doing day to day from a sense of not necessarily projects and things, but the nitty gritty, the stuff that you need to get done in order to move your position or the job forward a little bit, right? So for a help desk engineer, that might be that they're having to check backups or tickets or whatever else it might be, and ticking them off, making sure that they're done before the end of the day or before it kind of falls back.
And prioritizing, like, you know, they've got a P1 before a P2 and so on forth.
That's right. Yeah. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right. And Jim, yeah. and this will be the last question, guys, because we are 15 minutes over. And I know everyone's said,
I got to run a second.
As I've come from a corporate type background and ITIL, we use our PSA ticket priorities as our main automated escalation that we've designed into the PSA to escalate to myself if something's not dealt with in a timely manner, and response times are all catered for in the Freshdesk product and the PSA tool.
Yep.
Okay, and James?
So 90% of what we find when we have an issue is it's usually a wider platform issue. So it might be, for example, it might have an issue with a VoIP provider. One of Australia's major VoIP providers had an issue yesterday, right? For
Not
example.
us. I'm trying to convince James to bring his voice over to us. Another reason to.
Well, if you were good at sales, Ben, you might be able to convert me. No.
Look to your account manager.
Yeah, wow, I don't have one. Basically, what I find is when we have a platform-wide issue, we literally have the guys, as calls are coming in, logging the tickets. But what we'll do is we've got a status page, and we'll keep that up to date, and we'll even write when we're going to put our next update up. So we'll say investigating starting at midday, next update 12:15. And at 12:15, even if we've got nothing to write, we'll do a nothing to report, still investigating, right? Regular updates, even if it's nothing to report, is what makes life easier and clear. And it stops you from receiving 1,000 phone calls because, there's an email problem.
Comes back to communication, right?
Yep.
Correct.
There's so many things doing business.
Communication is the best. Less is more. But just people knowing that you're working on an issue is 90% of it. And, like, let's say phones go down. First thing that happens is my mobile phone will personally blow up from, customers saying, oh, our phones are down, right? And, all I can do is say, check the status. One big thing is Status Hub is what we use. And we make sure that as we sign people up to products, we actively put them on that Status Hub page so that they're going to get the updates SMS to their mobile phone.
Similar to what Hosted Network does as well. So, yeah.
I think to answer Ray's question, he asked, are those ideal world times realistic from that link? Yeah, I think they are.
Sorry, I didn't click the link. Sorry.
That's all right. The target resolution time, look, that can be a target. You can never give guaranteed resolution times, right? You can never give them.
Be careful if you use that word, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't use it because you can't. Microsoft outage, you can't. So no one uses guaranteed, but yeah, look, I think that's fine for a target resolution time, especially if it's critical, like, hey, the phones are down. That absolutely should be an immediate response. So
yeah.
Cool. Well, guys, we're 15 minutes over time. So I want to sort of say a big thank you. And, today's been absolutely amazing. It's been our first one, and an absolute pleasure to have you guys on our first one. So a huge thank you. I believe Meryl has organized a little thank you to each of you. So stay tuned for that. Meryl, I'm just going to call on you. Hopefully my screen is sharing. If you want to talk very quickly about our next upcoming MSP and conversation sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a couple that are coming up for the MSPs in Conversation series. The next one is actually going to be with Nigel Moore. So earlier in this particular session, we spoke about the Tech Tribe, and Nigel will be joining us, as well as a couple of our other MSPs, talking on smarter pricing, packaging, and systems to increase your MSP's profitability. That'll be in a few weeks' time on the 18th of August. And we also spoke about hiring IT talent. That'll be for the next MSPs in Conversation later in September. There'll be a wrap-up email anyways from this session today with the links for the upcoming events. And hopefully we can see you online then. I really appreciate your time, guys, and hopefully you enjoyed lunch and we're able to get that in time for this session today.
Cool. Well, again, I think that's meant to say thank you, but get in touch.
James has gone to the bathroom.
Yeah, James he's absolutely desperate. So Aaron, Jim, and James,
yes,
the Invisible,
much.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, as I said, it's been an absolute pleasure having you guys. Always a good chat. Until we get to catch up in person, thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Guys.
See ya, Meryl. See you, Ben. See you, Luke.
Bye now.